Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. We had a brief technical delay, but I am back, and we're gonna put the first 30 minutes online for everyone to see. So apologies, and we're back. But I just wanted to clarify again with the lean issue. To me, is that no one wants to talk about it, but I believe many of the rappers that have been influenced by this issue have mental health issues, childhood issues, and even if not, it's a feeling of I don't want to deal with reality. This is what I want to take. And to me, it's so insane because Lil Wayne was talking about how his stomach was so ripped up. He was in agony. And you think, why would you take something that's going to be so painful to you short and long term? Makes sense. We don't want to deal with reality. You'll do anything to avoid that, even literally killing yourself. Okay. Next piece was I want to talk about the power of these drugs. So often you don't really understand what you're dealing with. The big boy here for us, the big three to me are opiates, heroin, and crystal meth. That's what I see all the time. What is opiates for? They're prescribed mainly to treat moderate, severe pain, and they got hugely popular in like the last 20 years. And now opiate deaths, I think, hit 75,000 last year. It's finally tapering off. I don't know how much higher it can go, but it just shows you the power of them. What are some of the big boys in opiates? You got your morphine, you got your codeine, you got your hydrocodone, you got your oxycodone, you got diluteds, and then you got fentanyl, which is commonly described as a skin with transdermal patch. Dilaudid, and fentanyl. And I've seen so much of fentanyl abuse, it's crazy. Okay, now here's the thing also about opiates. Why are they so popular? Why are they so enjoyable for people to take them? Because it creates a flood of what's called artificial endorphins and dopamine. This is important things to understand. That came from the neurotransmitters I talked about earlier. Those are responsible for creating feelings of reward, pleasure, and satisfaction. This creates a rush of happiness and euphoria. This high is so unlike anything that's naturally occurring that the only way a person can experience this, again, is by using the drug again and again and again and again. But after repeated use, the brain, just to preserve itself, will stop creating dopamine and endorphins. So that limits the ability of the person to get these feelings again. So only when they use opiates, because the brain is literally shutting itself down. Now, what is the problem with opiates and heroin addiction? They have changed it the last 5-6 years because the epidemic got so insane that the FDA, the DEA, pharmacists, federal government stepped in and said, you know what? No more with these fentanyls, with these dilaudid, with the codeine. Enough. Now you want to get anything now from a factory, which used to get tons of stuff out of factories because doctors are prescribing this stuff. Now they tell doctors, if we see an increase in this in your prescription pads, you're going to be fined. You're going to be checked. We're going to block this. You no longer can get this kind of stuff the way they used to unless you have 900 signatures approving it. Now doctors are tell patients, I'm cutting you off. I'm not letting you get refills. No more pill mills. So the oxys that people used to get and that they lived for, it's no longer available. So what's the problem? Everyone is turning to heroin to take care of that high for them. It's also cheaper to get and a lot easier to get. In fact, in a survey of 2014, nearly all the response and treatment for opioid addiction resorted to using heroin because prescription pills were much harder and more difficult to get. That's in 2014. Now it is damn near impossible to get this stuff. They cut it off. They did a great job about it. Everything is coded on a computer, on an iPad. The days of getting an endless amount of this is gone. But the bliss of being on opiates is unbelievable, and you can't compare it. But they've cracked down tremendously on this stuff. What happens here when you take drugs? I get this question a lot asked me, people who are in recovery. If I've taken the drug, can my brain come back to normal? Here's the thing you got to realize just from jump. Okay. No such thing that when you take a medication, it's not going to go into your brain at one point or another, either for good or for bad. Just to tell you about this, when a person takes marijuana, THC will enter the brain and act on certain areas. This will affect the reward sector and also things that control balance, coordination, memory, and it does affect those areas. If you take ecstasy, MDMA, what happens? It changes the brain from the very first time you take it. And it alters the ability of neurons to transport serotonin, which is vital to many functions of the brain. The highway is now filled with potholes, turnoffs. It's like going to here in Vegas in the spaghetti bowl. It's just completely discombobulated. It's not fluid. It's not focused. And cocaine, if you take cocaine, it results in a changed brain that affects the individual's ability to feel pleasure, pain, and more. Approximately 100 days later, just from one time of cocaine, the brain is still not functioning the way it's supposed to. So just letting you know that all of these drugs have side effects, and that's why we're telling you, if possible, avoid taking the drugs, avoid taking the alcohol. Alcohol does things to the brain also, but they're all deadly if taken, in out of context and taken even for one time. You don't want to get hooked on that stuff and get started. Now, what do addicts say? Former addicts talking about who took crystal meth. And why is it one of the world's most addictive drugs? I got this from a video. He did a series of them called CG Kid, and he talks about this. And he goes, this is what he says about being on crystal meth and a variety of other drugs. He goes, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. It's still the worst drug for me and the one I regret trying the most. Here's the problem. You get dopamine units. That's what happens when you want to get pleasure, you want to get sensory experiences. Heroin will give you 400. Intimacy will give you 200. Cocaine will give you 400. Methamphetamine, 1,500 units of dopamine. Not even close. Not even close, these others. You add all three of them together, still not even close to what 1,500 units of dopamine hit. It's like this. It's like wow. It's like you feel like you're in a different planet. And it lasts for a long time. 24 hours it can last for with unbelievable sensations, and it's better than any activity you can engage in. He said he tried it once. He was automatically addicted. The only drug that ever happened to him. He said you last on a high with meth from 16 to 24 hours, cocaine, 30 minutes. What does it do? It hits a survival mechanism in your brain. Eating, intimacy. It's what gives you pleasure necessary for things for survival. They did a study about mice who were hooked on meth, given meth. What happened? No shock. They didn't eat. They just took meth till they died. Literally, they starved themselves to death, but they rather have meth than have food or any other kind of nourishment. Brain gets so hooked on it, you're doing meth or you're going to die. And he says it's the most beautiful feeling in life. You feel invincible. And meth hits can last up to 4 days. What do? Take another hit of meth, instant, 24 more hours, pleasure principle, boom, boom, boom. The brain is being flooded with dopamine. It's like being in Disney for like nonstop and going on every ride, like that's the feeling. And you gets you right back to that peak moment. Gives you, and he said also it gives you this weird confidence. You think you're the best in the room. This guy even liked the hallucinations, because when you're up 4 days, the brain is starved for sleep. You start to hallucinate. So it hits the systems instantly. And he said also you become interested in even mundane things that you normally wouldn't even care about, would be interested in, but that's how addictive it is. He says there's a binge drug, loss of moral code, and you're left only with institutional drive. Now, did another video called How Hard Was Quitting Crystal Meth for Him? He said, when I was on crystal meth, I had a feeling of self-worth, self-love, and self-confidence. Who wouldn't want to be on this drug? I mean, it makes so much sense to me. Everyone's like, crystal, 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 crystal. Don't take it. It's so dangerous. It's going to kill you. Yeah, it will kill you. But who wouldn't want to have these kind of pleasure feelings? Self-worth, self-love, and self-confidence. The only people I see every single day that have none of the above, And if they were told you can take a drug that will kill you, but will give you these feelings, who wouldn't take it? He says 7 years later, I'm in office, 7 years, I would still use crystal, despite everything. Because he said, being on the crystal meth, I never felt as good as I did than using this drug. When you feel like you're a god, when do you want to come back to earth? It makes total sense to me. He says 3 times a week, he still dreams of meth. No matter how much damage it did to him and how much damage it did to people in his life, or how many people he hurt by being so addicted, he says, give me 10 minutes alone with crystal, and I would go back to doing it again. 7 years later, he still dreams of about it 3 times a week. And if he was left alone with it, he would have to go back to it right away. Amazing to me. Now, what about heroin? This heroin addict who had 7 years himself, different addict, he says this. He says, I was into the hydrocodone, oxycodone. Why'd I get into heroin for? It costs way less, and it's way cheaper to get. Way less and way cheaper. And what did he say about being on heroin? You can he lived life every day with only one option. He wanted to have fun. Horrible fun, horrible crashes, both crystal and meth, up and down. But he wanted to have the fun. And it was terrible come downs and terrible with police and the courts and being arrested and almost dying. But he said, once I got sober, I did things that were not fun. I dealt with reality. Things I didn't want to do, and then changes happened for the better. Things I didn't want to do, things that we all want to do every single day. That's the whole point. Now, I got this from Journey from Pure at the River, another program. Your brain on drugs, how the damage is done, and how to undo it. What happens to your brain? There's a thing called the limbic system, which is a series of glands. And the limbic system is located in the center of the brain, and emotions and hormonal responses come from this part of the brain. No matter what type of drugs you use, they eventually find the way to your brain. More complex behaviors are grouped together by psychologists, and they call themselves executive behaviors. There's 8 of them. Getting started with an activity, evaluating your progress, keeping track of items and ideas, adjusting to unexpected circumstances, impulse control, holding on to important information, managing feelings, and prioritizing. All things you need to be, but when you're under the influence, these things become next to impossible. And your reward system is designed to reinforce positive experiences, so you'll repeat these actions. I did something right, I get praise. Part of the reward system is what's called your pituitary gland. What happens with hallucinogens, they mimic what's called serotonin. Dopamine with meth, hallucinogens with serotonin. That it regulates your appetite, your digestion, your sleep, intimacy, memory, and mood, in order to bind with what's called serotonin receptors. What's the problem? People coming off drugs, they get depressed. It's so depressing being off drugs. A, because they love being on drugs, and B, because now they realize the damage they've done to themselves. So depression is such a huge impact, and I get that. I deal with so many people who are crying, who are upset, who are sad, because they're not prepared now to make happiness that's real. They're so used to the artificial. What do drugs also do? They hijack the reward system. That's the problem, and they use it against you. And when the drugs find their way into the reward system, they cause the brain to be flooded with dopamine and serotonin. It's like a tsunami hitting your head every single time. It's too much. It's overloaded. And it hits those are the feel-good chemicals. And the pleasure you get from this experience is remarkable because many drugs exceed your natural ability to produce feel-good chemicals exponentially. Okay, there's hope, though. Scientists have discovered that the brain is capable of working around many damaged areas. This ability is referred to as plasticity. Don't give up. Your brain can heal itself. It allows the brain to continue to function even when the thought pathways are damaged. The brain can grow new pathways and move its messages around in a different way. The brain is flexible. Now, finally, what can you do as adults to help your kids out? If you're an adult dealing with drug or addiction issues, get clean before you have kids, please. Even your sperm or semen can have adverse reactions to kids, even before they come out screaming. Work on your mental health issues before you decide to have children. Look at your genes. Number 2, be involved in your children's lives from jumpstart. Moms take the brunt, but the loss of a dad is a massive hit. So many kids have no dads. Be aware and talk to your kids about everything. Don't be a house of secrets. I grew up that way, and it was terrible. Learn, if anything, that the later you start, the more you give your brain a chance to develop, because the brain is not fully developed until the age of 25. Waiting just a little bit can be the difference between life and death. You're more mature, you think better. Why do so many people get into trouble between 18 and 25? Because your brain's not fully formed. That's why. You're making dumb decisions. But being on alcohol or drugs makes that even far worse. And let me tell you something also. The kids aren't going to know what's right or wrong. You will. That's why you got to be involved. With the lean, 8.5%. And where are the parents? It makes no sense to me. Ask questions. Parents are so afraid to be seen as intrusive. Well, if you're not, then who will be? If they don't learn it from you, they will learn it from being on the streets. Give your kids confidence and self-worth. Don't let them be abused sexually, physically, or emotionally. Look out for them. When you're confident people do not need artificial boosters. I don't need to feel better about myself by getting high or getting loaded or getting drunk. I already feel good about myself. Be involved with school situations and don't let them be bullied. Don't humiliate, shame, or ridicule them. I said that before. I'm saying this again. I had a father like that, and it was not fun. Know who their friends are and meet their parents so they don't need to experiment. That's another biggie. Why are you experimenting for? You don't like who you are. You don't like yourself. Finally, reaching the end of the webinar. Look at your kids as a brand. Would you damage a brand if you're working for a company, if you're working for Apple, Disney, Microsoft? They spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year in advertising and marketing protections to protect the brand. That's what your kids are. They're a brand. And the more you put into that, the more you put into them, it's like a stock that only goes higher and higher, is you're putting the effort into them. Look at your kids like a long-term investment. And the more you do early, the better off they're going to be as they get older. Now, look, I'm not here to argue about people who are taking drugs. I get it. I had to change my whole approach to doing therapy. In fact, I'm hoping to be involved in the drug program as an intern so I can get my license to be an alcohol and drug counselor in the next year or so to understand people better, why it's so difficult to get off drugs. But what are the underlying factors that got you started in the first place? If I can give people confidence and feelings of hope that even if they are dealing with trauma, and so many kids are exposed to this, then I can make a fighting chance to have somebody not be in the horrors of losing their life potentially, but all the other horrors as well to mess you up. That's the point of this webinar tonight. I put a lot of statistics in, a lot of facts, a lot of information about chemical reactions in the brain. I could have talked about this for 5 more hours. I had to cut back because there's only an hour. But I'm doing this because I'm concerned. I see so much drug usage earlier and earlier and earlier. I don't want to deal with reality, Bruce. And that's what it comes down to. And that's crazy to me. Because if you don't deal with reality, who's going to take care of each other? I don't want to deal with reality. No, I don't want to deal with reality. But I can't do it being high, we're stoned, we're drunk. Then what kind of father, husband, worker, even making this video am I going to do? Even the amount of effort to put this together takes hours and hours of reading and writing, editing, thinking how it's going to work, meeting with my agent, my producer. If I'm under the influence, if I'm not stable, then how am I able to help myself even? Forget about anyone else. I'm not even helping me. That's the whole point. That's why we wanted to put this together. Now, we didn't get any questions tonight, any comments, and that's fine. But the point is, these are informative because I want these to become family events. We'll make the videos on the music. Don't worry, that's going to keep on coming. But I want to break that world of silence, that wall of silence, where everyone's like, shh, shh, let's not talk about it. Well, if you don't talk about it, you're going to talk about it in court, or if someone is arrested, or if someone's at a funeral, where you're going to go to someone's house to pay respects. You don't want to think like that. You want to be thinking more creatively and more realistically about what the problem really is. And that's what this is all about tonight, is to talk about issues that are unpleasant. This is not just for kids watching it, and I hope so. I hope, of course, kids are, or young adolescents, or young college age, whatever it is. But I want it to be for parents, for grandparents, for coaches, for teachers, for youth ministers, people involved in church groups. Understand how addictive and how powerful these drugs are, and just how aggressive and the things that they do to you and hijack your brain, that when you're dealing with trauma, you really don't like yourself and who you are. You think it's a quick fix. Okay, I'll take the drugs, I'll take the alcohol, but the repercussions are so severe. And that's what I want to see people be aware of and think about, and not get sucked down that path of self-destruction. So please, those of you that are watching the video are almost out of time. I want you, please, send me your comments, send me your questions, send me your thoughts. We've gotten hundreds of comments on the other 70 videos almost now, and that's great. And I answer almost every one of them. But if you got issues, you got concerns, how do I talk to my kid about this? How do I talk to my parents about this? I want to get the dialogue open. I want to get that. The whole thing, what we're doing is preventative. That's why I want to have a few minutes at the end to kind of talk about this till my producer goes like this, gives me the signal, like we're done. And I just want you to think about, and we're not here to argue whether, I know I'm going to get comments about marijuana, that it's legal. Yeah, you're allowed to have a certain amount of it now. Okay. I'm not here to argue, but I want you to think about that it does have an effect on the brain. If I get ribbed for this, that's fine. But take the time to be, if you don't start at 14, start at 16. If you don't start at 16, start at 18, start at 21. Give your brain a chance just to grow and develop, because it's still growing. That's my whole point. So that's it. We just got some comments. Actually, I'm going to read them out loud real quick. It says, any questions? Marijuana is marijuana is legal. Thanks for joining. Oh, okay. Marijuana is legal in my country now. I'm assuming you're talking about America or most of the world. And I love your videos, bro. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I want to have an open discussion about it. I'm not here to knock marijuana. Does it have purposes? Of course it does. Obviously, we get that. Opiates are designed to help people with chronic pain, and it just raced and took over the world. But I just want you to be aware of what this damage does to you. It's legal. Going back to marijuana for a second, but the longer you can delay, the more you can let that brain grow. That brain, you only get one of them. You don't get a second chance at a brain. I just want you to get a chance to let that brain develop its full potential. And then whatever you want to do. I don't care. But giving yourself a chance to grow. And I want to thank everybody again. The comments, the praise that's been coming in. We're getting comments from around the world, global, with the exception of Antarctica, looks like basically. We have to work on that. But I want to thank everybody because it's been a great ride. The number of subscribers continues to grow up. The number of views continue to grow. Wonderful. And we're going to put out more content. We're going to put out more videos of your favorite rappers and musicians, because we know that's a great way of reaching people and making them feel comfortable and enjoy listening to us. And that's fantastic. That's what we want to keep on doing. But I want to give everyone just an understanding of it, because the number of people that have become addicted to heroin, to opiates, to methamphetamine is just shooting through the roof. And the complex comorbid issues that I'm seeing now at the hospitals and individual therapy is going through the roof. And it's dangerous and it's crazy and it has lasting repercussions. You don't need that. So again, I'd like to get some comments from people who watches with their kids, who watch it themselves, who have children, and talk about their own mental health issues. Even before you have children, please sit down and say to yourself, am I mentally ready to be a parent? Even to do that would be so huge and help out so many people, because so many people are struggling with that concept. I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. that takes a lot of guts to do what this person just did, but he talked about his own family. I'm sorry to hear that. I am so, so sorry. I can only imagine the hell that you're going through on a daily level. My heart goes out to you because you don't deserve that. And I'm sorry you're dealing with that kind of pain and misery and anguish and despair. And I don't know how you're keeping yourself stable. And I hope you're not doing that with alcohol or drugs. I hope you find a way to cope without having to get high to escape reality. And I understand your pain. And kudos to you having the guts to say this. And I hope your family members get off it because there's a monkey on your back that you just can't get rid of until you finally make the attempt to get clean and clear and sober and self-aware and to deal with reality. So you have my empathy. I'm humbled once again. We do these webinars. We don't know where it's going to land. It's like throwing seeds into the air, where it's going to land and where it's going to grow. And this person was watching and made a comment 3 in a row, and I'm just wow. If one person gets clarity from this and a connection of self-worth, then you know what? It's worth it. Then I feel very, very comfortable. And I'm very, very happy. So with that, I'm going to close. Thank you. Everyone we've done with these webinars, people have actually logged on and asked questions. And we're not afraid to answer them. If you want to ask the questions on this video, we got the comment section. Go right ahead. Not a problem. On the first video, go right ahead. So with that, I'm going to close. There's going to be more content coming out. I'm going to be doing a 4-song block. My favorite artists on Cuddy, Kendrick, Mac Miller, and Triple X. And it'll be available on iTunes, probably about 99 cents a song. We have other content coming out, other songs coming out, more webinars coming out. And we're here. We're not going anywhere. This is what we're doing. We see the growth. We see the number of subscribers in the comments. We are here. We're not going anywhere. And we're here for our fans. Thank you so much. Sunridge of Nevada, Bruce Mufson. Thank you for watching.